Hey GP learners, and welcome to this live stream. We're going to be talking about how you can do messaging with MJOG. This is going to be a complete guide, and many people have been looking at this over the past few weeks as we're seeing changes across the entire ecosystem of general practice. So buckle up as we're joined by the MJOG team to cover effectively how you can use MJOG in your practice, in your network, or in your area. Let's tech enhance your primary care and learning. Hey GP learners. So as I said, we're joined by the MJOG team. We've got Matt and we've got Brendan, although I think Brendan's having some camera issues, so apologies for that. And they're going to be talking to us about the various different ways that you can use MJOG a bit more effectively, and particularly talking about their newer product that's becoming a lot more developed, Desktop GP, and basically taking you through a guide of how it works, and especially giving you the opportunity to ask your questions so we can try and answer them as best as we can. I'm going to pass over to the team. So if I can go first to Matt to introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Matt Freestone, Marketing Manager over at MJOG. Over to Brendan.
Hi, yeah, Brendan here over at MJOG, Customer Engagement Manager. I'll be showing us through how this all works.
Okie dokie. So I guess many people have been talking about, the kind of change that we've got across the kind of general practice, digital ecosphere, whatever you want to call it. And obviously we're seeing a lot of change, commissioning, practice, all that kind of stuff. COVID absolutely changed everything that we did, pretty much, but no more especially than kind of the way that we engage with patients, particularly through SMS and other kind of routes and stuff. We've seen a lot of change over that area, and I guess in particular there's parts that we wanted to cover in terms of how the newer tools can help, and absolutely looking at how MJOG can help you in your practice. So I guess first kind of question is, how have things been changing with MJOG itself in terms of what we kind of people may be more used to and what's now available?
Yeah, so I joined in March 2020, which is again a strange time to join a healthcare company. So again into the deep end a bit. And then in September we were acquired by Livy, which is owned by the Cree company from Sweden. So our parent company Livy, they've put a lot of resources, a lot of effort, a lot of team resources into our product. And as I'll be able to show you in the slides, we've got some incredible development work that's been done on our Desktop GP product, and we're now also moving into redeveloping, updating our batch messaging and appointment reminder features, which is used by about 60% of practices across the UK. A lot of change. We're moving to a much bigger team. The team that are now working on the MJOG product development-wise are almost as big as the entire team that we had back in March 2020. So a lot more resources. Much more frequent updates, nicer UI design, etc. From a professional UI UX team, and also on Brendan's side, I think and Brendan can attest to this. We've got more resources coming into our support team, into the development team, across the board. So you'll see service improve quite considerably from MJOG. We're scaling up quickly.
It's true.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. I guess over that time, as you mentioned, we've had a lot of change happen. And many people, to kind of address this now, have commented on the different kind of platforms and kind of companies available. We've absolutely seen some changes across, like I said, the ecosphere. And I guess in particular, there's comparisons made between MJOG and other kind of companies like Accurix and that kind of stuff, and particularly developmental cycles, interfaces. You mentioned a few of those things already, Matt. I guess just to raise that question, how would you answer to those people that feel that, because of various changes that are happening, that it's a product that potentially hasn't been as good as it could have been, and just to kind of give us a bit more detail onto that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, MJOG's been around. We've been around for 10 plus years now. We might have sat on our laurels a bit in the past, and I think that every company that's been well established in the market is very can be guilty of that. When COVID kind of started, and also just before COVID, our Desktop GP product was launched into the market. It wasn't quite right. It didn't have the right product market fit, and the competitors that we've seen in the market, and the very fast development cycles that we've seen have certainly, I think, just put a rocket into everyone that's in the healthcare industry. So we've seen big advances, like you mentioned, from the Accurix team, big advances, across all other competitors as well. So there's more and more players in the market, which basically means that we've had to move fast to continue to compete, really. So I think it's a good thing. More competition is always welcome, especially for the end user. It, you know, stimulates growth. It stimulates development changes. You know, we've seen, you know, GPs who previously wouldn't really get a say in what software they were kind of said they've got to use by, you know, CCGs, PCNs, etc. You know, much more of a voice now, which is, you know, a challenge for, you know, for companies like us. You know, we might have, you know, we've had to scale up our teams, you know, so we can engage with people on the platforms that they choose. But I think overall a good thing, especially for the end user, which is the most important thing, really.
Cool. Okay, so I guess it's worth having a look at kind of what's been happening and what we're looking at from the platform itself. I'm going to bring on your screen share, so we've got some more details for you, and take it away, Matt.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've covered a few of these, but this is what we'll be diving into today, a bit of a mini dive into Desktop GP, going over our current product offering, which, you know, MJOG's a multi-channel solution, so, you know, it's pretty broad on what we offer. A live demo of Desktop GP from Brendan, and basically a sneak peek into our new home screen, and then an open questions and answer session as well. So again, that's me and Brendan. So Desktop GP in its current form. At the moment, this is Desktop GP. It's a 2.05 version for all the techies out there. Been recently updated. Sorry, it's a bit small on the screen share, but the you know, we've got some great new features in there, like allowing replies, which is a, you know, GP request. You know, MJOG Desktop GP shows you if your mobile number is being shared with other patients, which again has been a really important feature. And of course, you can switch between, you know, smart messaging or SMS messaging, which is important. So it's our toolbar. It plugs in on top of MJOG Premium. It enables one-to-one messaging, video consultations, and send sequences of messages. But the most important thing, it is free for all MJOG practices. So if you've got MJOG Premium, you can grab MJOG Desktop GP. You can use that. So it's available across over 4,000 practices. Where we came from. So this is a screenshot from, you know, I can't actually remember when the screenshot's from. I think you better see it there. There you go. June 2020, that message was received on the test screen there. So we've come a long way in, you know, way less than a year. You know, when the Livy team were onboarded, probably about November, December time, we, you know, very quickly scaled up. So, you know, where are we going is the most important thing. So this design, I think there's been a few comments on Twitter, you know, and rightly so, going, oh, this looks really familiar with another product that we're using, right? Like, and I think the kind of the way that we're, you know, we have approached design, you know, we've been speaking to the same GPs essentially, right? You know, we've been speaking to GPs. It's designed in collaboration with GPs and practice staff. So we're getting told the same things. You've got EMRs, you know, you've got your screens, you know, you've got screen real estate that you need to make sure is really important. So you don't want a toolbar that's taking up 40% of your screen and you can't actually see the patient record behind it, you know, not very helpful. Exactly. So as you can see, much more intuitive design, more features that you need. So clinical coding is very easy to access down here. NHS advice is nice and easy as well. And you also show you some more screenshots of that later. And then attaching you know, PDFs and stuff is also very, very easy. As you can see up here as well, which is a really nice feature, is you can see all the information. So where does it sit is kind of my, you know, what I wanted to go over is MJOG has a lot of features, you know, I think quite misunderstood in some ways from, you know, over the years of what each feature does. And I don't want to dig too deep into that because we could be here for hours. But so MJOG Premium is our, you know, our batch messaging, appointment reminders, friends and family. It also does enable one-to-one messaging as well, but, you know, that's what Desktop GP is designed for. So one-to-one messaging from without having to leave the clinical system, without having to open up your web browser, etc. You can just have it there on a toolbar. Video consultations, etc. as well. We've then got our smart channel, which is delivering messages to an app, which is a really nice feature. What it enables CCGs to do is save tons of money. It enables GPs to send much more engaging and rich messages, including video, YouTube videos, all that type of stuff, all for free, which is again, really important. The patient health monitor is a bit of a complex tool, but essentially you can remotely monitor patient vitals and have them sync back into your EMR. And then our other channels that we offer as well, email, voice, and then plugging in again on top of this in a new layer, sequences and video for Desktop GP, and then Web Messenger and Smart Monitor for the smart products, which is, again, a very, very good feature. So over to Brendan now for a live demo, and yeah, take it away, Brendan.
Superb stuff. Okay, thank you very much. So, what have we got here? Well, first of all, we've got our base MJOG interface, of course, and some of you are going to know what this all looks like, but that's not really what we're here for. Doesn't get you out of the way. EMIS, of course. Now, what I'm going to look at here will work with EMIS or System 1 just the same, but in this case, I've just got EMIS open. So for anyone who's going to ask, what about with System 1, then pretty much exactly the same. It's just the PAS looks different. Now, the actual install of the system, we've got even a YouTube playlist on how you can go through this, and it covers it off step by step. I won't do the actual install of the software now, but let's say you've got a brand new, fresh desktop GP toolbar. It's going to look a little like that. Now, of course, this is for all your clinicians, and they're all going to need logins to get into the thing. So we've made it so that they don't have to come through and do anything more than create their own account. The buttons on this blue toolbar may even be somewhat reminiscent of a green toolbar you may know of, but let's talk of that. So I'm going to create an account, and it wants to know, of course, who I am. So it needs some details. And what I'm going to do is send me an email and a text. Oh, great. It would send me an email and a text with all the registration info in there. So it's going to be a registration message come through to my phone and to my email.
So just to provide more context on this, we did have a lot of feedback from GPs and practice managers about not being able to create their own accounts, something we've now implemented, obviously, with Brendan showing off. So being able to create your own account instead of a practice manager doing it is much better.
That's right. Much better. Now, so that I'm not waiting on any text messages to come back to me or emails bouncing through, which wouldn't actually take that long, but I've just gone and you'll get a text through. It'll ask you for your code. And then you have a user account that will let you send anything from your toolbar. You can get your messages out ASAP. So you're going to have a patient active in your clinical system, and we've got a few buttons here. If you hover over them, it will tell you what they are. So you will have an inbox, and that will be filtered to only replies to messages that you have sent. Now, that's different to your normal MJOG interface because there is an inbox in there, but that's everything. You'll have replies for your batch messages. You'll have responses to your appointment reminders and such. But your desktop GP toolbar will only be responses when you've sent that original message to the patient in the first place. Next one along, message. So we've got a patient open. We ask it to try and send them a message, and it's going to open us a little old window like this. Oh, it's a bit of a strange one there. Maybe I've got a different browser running. Now I can type out a message of whatever I want that to be, or pick a template. Now on top of that, I have a browser drama here. We can have it do coding as well. The templates that come with MJOG's Desktop GP will have a baseline code in there for text sent to patient, essentially. And there'll be a comment space where you can add more meat to the bones on that. You can preview your message, make sure you're happy with it. And there's a button to send. That'll go out. Provided the patient receives the message, the coding will then return back into their record. Now, of course, you might have something you want to build completely from scratch, and that's not a problem at all. We can go into our message again. We find our patient. We know that's done. We can start a new one. That's just so we don't end up retyping the same thing several times over. Let's switch over to text. Type your message here. Well, it just gives us a baseline to start with, and, you know, our message goes here, where you'll want to be sure you're not leaving typos, of course. And we can do attachments as well. So, for instance, you might be wanting to send someone a prescription note, or potentially just information on how you're accepting people into the practice, and stay in the car park, don't come in, that kind of affair. You might have a document for that, and it means you're not sending big chunky text messages full of information which people might read. Choose a file, attach your PDF. The patient receives a web link on the bottom of their text message. They open that web link and it'll have your document on it. Again, we hit send, and away it goes. Now, if I just quickly grab my phone and do a reply to this, shortly we'll be able to show you when that comes into the inbox. That will take a moment or two. Other functions we have on here, there'll be video consultations as well. I can't actually show you that on this one because I'd need someone else's number to do that with. And of course, you can't see my camera to show you the side back and forth of it. But essentially, yes, video consultation to the patient off their handset. And from your side of things, that can be either done on your PC, provided you have, of course, webcam and microphone and so forth. Alternatively, it will send your clinician a link where they can hold that consultation from their handset if they prefer, or if they have to, indeed. There are some more options then. Recent conversations, very similar to your inbox, but it'll have everything you've sent, how much you've used it, help button, and of course to log it out. But that's very much a whistle-stop tour. For more information on it, of course, feel free to dive into our YouTube channel where we have various content for that.
Cool, thank you. So I guess
very much, Brendan.
Some of the kind of functionality that's currently being offered, just to be clear, so the blue toolbar we're seeing now, is that currently live, or is that due to go live imminently, just so we've got a better idea for those current users out there?
Yeah, so for our current users, just messaging Brendan on Slack separately here, the what seems to have been the case on this particular test version that we have is that it's a halfway house basically between the current version, which I showed off in the slides. I'll just whip back to that on my slides here, which I can show you. And then so essentially, as you can see, this was the version that we were due to show you. It is been a halfway house, which is entirely our fault within the live demo just then. What we were moving towards, as you can see, we were moving towards this version that we wanted to show you. So the live version that most people will see right now, and if you went and downloaded DesktopGP, the link will be, I'm sure, in the description of the video or the YouTube video. This is what the users will see at the moment. So it's a bit wider than we'd like at the moment, but it's still made some good progress from where it was. And I'll be able to show you some screens of where we're moving towards. So if I just fast forward through my slides, animated, because I'm a marketing person, you can't resist an animation here and there. So again, coming soon. Again, the version that we were showing on a live demo, again, a bit of halfway house, and so DesktopGP will be moving forward to this much nicer, slimmer version. On this particular one here, we're showing off this is how you would send a sequence. So that sequence of messages, you've got the asthma advice. So we have templates here for that are pre-built, in DesktopGP, and they're ready in the current live version as well. So they're not just, they're not going to wait until this new version's released. So as you can see, this one's an asthma 101, initial asthma advice. These ones are all being sent on the same day. Our designer has obviously put these on there, and but you could send these any time of day that you would like, and over the course of 2-3 weeks or something like that. So you can set a custom delay, which is really nice. Again, you can spread it out over different ones, or you can delay over to next week or 6 months ahead of time, whenever you wish, which is really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
On our SNOMED code, MJOG does have access to the full SNOMED code library, which is really helpful. So you can easily search a SNOMED code within DesktopGP, also within the within the main MJOG client as well. And again, that is what it would look like when it's finished. So you have your clinical coding in there. It's telling you you've got a delay on this message until they've actually delayed it for a few months ahead on this occasion. And hopefully you wouldn't actually send out one with typos, etc. But it does let you know that you've made typos on the way as well. Mm-hmm. So what people from using MJOG over the years will know is a bit of a screen that is a bit more historic than this one. So this is our new MJOG home screen, as you can see by the banner at the top here. Something we're really, really excited to share, and hence I wanted to show you guys on the stream, and get any feedback as well. This has been approved for development. It's a huge step forward for MJOG. Much simpler design, instead of things being hidden in smaller menus, etc. Your key things that GPs and practice managers have been asking for is being surfaced right on the front, the front of the MJOG interface. So you'll see some quick stats down there as well. So today's report: how many campaign messages were sent, how many messages were sent over desktop GP, how many replies did you have in, all of the etc. A nice inbox will be there as well, and like I said to you, hopefully in a few weeks' time as well, we'll be able to actually share a prototype of this after our initial user testing has been complete, which will be, again, really, really nice to do. So our roadmap is something I think we're keen to share. If we wanted to go through this.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward for for MJOG. I think in the past we might not have been that transparent about where we're hoping to go, and as a team now, the original MJOG team and also our new Livy colleagues, very keen to share with you our kind of direction of travel. So all of this stuff is penciled for 2021. Some stuff obviously earlier, some stuff later, etc. So first of all, as you've just seen, home screen, we really want to make that a new experience, much cleaner experience, much easier to use, not intimidating when you want to send a campaign, etc. After that, batch messaging. So we want to simplify that journey. At the moment, you have a kind of a mini wizard almost. It's not quite a wizard, but it can be more intuitive essentially, and that's what we're looking to make it. And then from that, I think one of the questions we had in was, how can I use MJOG at home, right? And I think, cloud, moving the whole of MJOG to cloud, making it all cloud-based is going to make that very, much easier. At the moment, if you want to use MJOG, we'll touch on this later, at the moment, you'll have to VPN into your practice network, which I know isn't ideal for everybody. Surveys. So at the moment with MJOG, you can send a survey via MJOG Smart and using the Smart Monitor tool, which is an additional kind of layer of the Smart functionality. So Smart, you can do surveys. We want to make them easier, and that's on our roadmap as well. And the inbox. So we know that people like team inboxes. They like inboxes for nurses, or inboxes for GPs, or inboxes just for admin staff, that type of stuff. So we do want to make sure that our inbox, and the workflows that come off that are nice and optimized. So that is on the roadmap for this year. And then from that, we work really closely with System 1 and EMIS and a couple of others as well. But we want to make sending messages via MJOG much easier with the clinical system, the integrations that we have there. So we've got a very strong integration with EMIS and System 1. And we want to improve that even further by, for example, leveraging the COVID groups that we had that are already in EMIS, and how can we get those into MJOG and other similar ones. I think we're maybe a bit late to the party on the the COVID groups, obviously, but in the future, similar groups will be leveraged by the clinical systems, which we would love to tap into. So very important. I think we're kind of 2021. We're almost a bit past downloading a CSV and uploading it again, aren't we? I think we should maybe move forward from that. Again, an open Q&A. So let's
awesome.
answer what we can.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm going to give the opportunity for our audience to ask any questions that they have. So start putting them in the chat and stuff and things. In the meantime, we have got a couple of questions that have come in beforehand that I've been asked to ask. And so we're going to go through those whilst we wait for those kind of questions and stuff to come through. So firstly, the question that comes up with any kind of demo I seem to do, how much does it cost? So this is always one that we get asked. And so take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so MJOG historically has been a per practice cost. So it doesn't matter how many patients you have, and you can still get MJOG at this cost price, today. And for bigger PCNs and CCGs, it's obviously very discounted, even more so than this. So traditionally, MJOG Premium has been sat at about £600. That enables batch messaging and appointment reminders. Desktop GP on top of that is about £120, and there's other, kind of stacks up from there. And if you had the full MJOG solution, I think you're looking at around 1,500 to 2,000. That's at retail price. At the moment, we are, like I said, Desktop GP is currently free. So you can have the batch messaging, appointment reminders, and the clinician toolbar, and video calls, and sending sequence of messages, all for £600 per practice. So no matter if you've got 15,000 patients or you have 200 patients, I think that's unlikely, but the cost would be the same, which is quite nice. So if you compare that to a rough price per patient type of a typical costing, at the moment we're coming in at about 9 to 11 pence per patient. So for an average practice, that is. And then bundled pricing for PCNs comes in even lower, about 7 pence per patient, and that's for the clinician toolbar, batch messaging, and appointment reminders, of which you can obviously send documents to patients. You can send surveys to patients via MJOG Smart, because that's in there as well. And so we're probably the most competitively priced on the market, I would say, and at this moment in time, as a kind of caveat.
Cool. You touched on one of the questions that we are going to ask. So it was about cloud access and I guess remote work access more than anything. At the moment, obviously, many clinicians are having to work remotely, either down to COVID or due to isolation changes in particular. So, if you get a temperature, well, you're stuck at home until you get that negative COVID test or positive, and then it's even longer. But how does that work in terms of accessing MJOG from a practice? Can you just talk us through what it's like now? And it sounds like that's going to change as well in the near future. So when will that be?
Yes, I think I actually lean on to Brendan for this one. He's much more techie than I am, so I will.
Well, currently your access into your MJOG systems mostly dependent on your network in the practice. This is obviously for various security reasons. You don't want people being able to dive in and grab all your data out of nowhere. So as long as you're able to connect to the network of your practice, you're able to get to your MJOG interface. By the same standard, you should then also be able to get Desktop GP working remotely as well. But it is all a case of, if you are working from home off a laptop, chances are you're going to need to have been supplied something like a Citrix key or something to that effect, which would then let you remote log in to your desktop and files and networks and all the drives that come with that. So currently, yes, it's restricted in that way. But as Matt says, we're looking into different options as to where we'll be able to have it so that it is accessible. There'll be some extra security pieces put in place around that, I'd imagine, just for everyone's safety.
Okay, so if I can push a little deeper into that. So, for example, in my practice, we have across Nottingham, we've got different types of remote access that we have. So we've got some practices that dial in with a VPN token, so like the Citrix key that you mentioned. We've got other places where they use NVDI technology, so dials into a central server. So not necessarily the practice, but a central server that then allows them access. For example, I use System 1, so through that I can access System 1. Would I then be able to use MJOG, particularly through that NVDI access and stuff?
That certainly sounds like it should work. I mean, I certainly am not sitting here and rubber stamping a yes, no on this one. All I can say is try it. I mean, it's the same link, whether you're going to be internal or external. So if you've got your IP address /MJOG display, you can grab that, copy that, and try that from home. And if it works, you're in.
Okay, cool. And then I guess the next question we had was about the developmental cycle. So you gave us kind of a plan of what we're looking at coming through in the next kind of year in 2021 and stuff. I guess if users had something they wanted to see change in terms of how it's working and stuff, how long do you, on average, taking out the tech complexity of it, because that varies obviously, but how long would you see an average developmental cycle currently, given all the stuff that you guys have been doing?
Well, some things that we've been working on are moving very quickly. So, for example, the allow replies feature is something that was very quickly identified as something that GPs needed, and from that as well, in our current version of allowing replies, at the moment, patients can reply more than once. We know that GPs want only one reply to come in as allow just one reply to this message. So it's something that, again, that's on our roadmap. Currently I'm not sure which sprint cycle it's in, so we do work on, I might get killed if I say this wrong, but I think it's about 1 to 2 week sprint cycles. So if something's urgent, something's highly requested, you can't obviously promise anything, but our actual sprint cycles, depending on how complex it is, like you said, things, moving MJOG to the cloud is not a 1 week sprint, well, of course. But if it's a small thing and it's bumped quickly to the top, which again we all have input on, we have a very transparent team over at Livy MJOG, so it can be from a week through to months, right? Depending on what it is. If it's absolutely mission critical, there's always every possibility that it could get bumped. But again, our R&D development team is they're an entity on their own, and they're guided by the overall needs of the business. So without getting too technical.
Okay.
But all the stuff that we're working on at the moment is stuff that's come from feedback from practice managers and GPs. So they are guiding the development cycle, which is again very key. Okay.
So we've had a few questions come in, particularly from May W. So does the coding feature in the message the patient receives, or is it saved into the notes separately? Bit confusing for the patient to see the coding, as it may not make some sense.
Okay, yes, this is maybe our design wasn't quite clear on there. So the coding doesn't ever show for the patient, and it just goes directly into the medical records. So it just saves straight into the your EMR where you would expect it to save. It doesn't get shown to the patient at all. So hopefully that solves that one.
Okay. And with that, I guess a further question then. So the SMS or the smart message that I send, is that currently saved into the clinical system? And if it's not both of them, is it one or the other? Or does that make sense?
I'll let Brendan touch on this one.
With various messages in MJOG, in some cases you will need to tell it what to code. Up until kind of really recently, when we started adding in more pieces for desktop GP, it didn't have like a preset default code, because of course we can't be sure what it is. It's not going to be sure what it is you want to send. So what would you want to code that as? And we wouldn't want to put something in there that's default incorrect. So, for instance, in the campaign side of MJOG, which is kind of different to what we're talking about here, you do tell it exactly which codes you want to use for that particular outbound message and for any replies potentially that you may be looking for. With Desktop GP, it's going to come with a baseline standard of text sent to patient, but it'll also put a copy of the message in the comment space as well. Now, by default, that would be the content of your actual text. It'd be the actual text of the text. But you can override that and replace it with whatever is more relevant for that message, be that an invitation code or something to that effect.
Okay. So just to clarify, so I understand that completely, I send an SMS reply to a patient, say, for example, we discussed about this skin rash that you showed me. Here's a prescription. I've sent it straight to the pharmacy. When I save the record, that text message I've sent back to the patient will save directly into the clinical record as a comment on that patient's record?
That'd be right. So you'd find a code, believe it being care history, but I could be wrong on that one. And you'll have a code, again, text sent to patient, and then in the comment space, the meat of the actual message itself.
Okay.
What you actually
will there be any difference, I guess, between SMSs that are sent and smart messages? Because obviously they are different things. So is there going to be is there a difference? I don't know if there should be or not, but
that's more of a question I believe would really be best for people on the clinical side of things, because whether they've received it as a text or whether they've received it as a web link or something to that, does that matter to your side of things?
I guess what I'm trying to get at, so the smart message obviously can be much longer.
That's right.
So it's just understanding whether or not it's the link to the smart message that comes into the record, or is it the entire content of the smart message itself?
With smart messaging, you're absolutely right, because there's only going to be so much finite space in a comment. I believe it's not much bigger than, say, 160 characters or something like that. So with smart messages, more commonly what you may want to be doing with that is add in a summary comment of what it is, because it's not going to be able to put in all the HTML and images and so forth into that little old box. So where you'll have the options, so pick a code, there'll be a comments box, which for completionist's sake, yes, you'll probably want to add a little bit of detail in there. If of course the code itself doesn't really tell the tale in itself, which of course in some cases it doesn't.
Okay, cool. So next up, we've got another question from May. So what happens to delayed messages when they're sent if the patient has moved or died? I guess she's concerned that may not be sensible to send. I guess that obviously comes down to how far in the future you're sending. I'm guessing sending a year down the line, probably not good practice, but yeah.
I think on this one, very briefly, this is something that we have a weekly kind of design review on a Thursday afternoon. And this was, something like this was raised, I think, last week about, what happens to scheduled messages? How can I see all of my scheduled messages in one space almost? So it's something that our design team are looking at of, all of my upcoming scheduled messages. So how can I see those? At the moment, I don't. Brendan might have the answer. Just obviously jump in a sec, Brendan. I'm not sure what happens at the moment, but in the future we want to provide a space, and it's being looked at to actually see these are all my upcoming scheduled messages across the whole MJOG product suite, just to make sure that if you did have a situation like that, you'd quickly be able to, I don't know, search by patient name or something like that, and there might be a possibility to then just remove all the message there. But I'll let Brendan explain further.
Well, see, it depends on the message you're going out, because, say, for instance, appointment reminders are reactive to your appointment book. And so in the situation in that question, it's probably unlikely you're going to have that booking. For batch messaging, then that's reliant on the searches you extract from your clinical system. It's going to give you a list of all the people you're trying to get hold of. And that list is then, whoever goes into that list, MJOG will take as gospel and will try and send to them. So it's down to the data which you feed into it. And the same with Desktop GP. If you look up a patient that you want to send a message and that's maybe not the best message to send, then I'm trying to think of a nice way of putting this. But yeah, ultimately, it's only going to send what it knows to send. And in many cases, it's the user saying, send this. Now, where this can be a difference is, as you're suggesting, with campaigns, in that if you've given it a list today, and actually it's a message you want to go out in 3-4 weeks' time, MJOG won't know the changes in that list. So with batch messaging, it's always a better practice to use the list like almost the day you want that message going out. Okay.
Cool. Okay. So next question I've had is more from the patient's perspective, I think. So accessing the attachment is the patient. So when a patient normally has to do that with the current system, they're using patient has to stick in their date of birth as a security check. Is there a similar process from the MJOG side when a patient's using it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there certainly is.
Go on.
Sorry, yeah, there absolutely is. It's default as off, but there is the option you can, when you put the attachment in, it will be, do you want to use a PIN? And again, I believe it's actually year of birth, but similar kind of principle, yes.
Okay, cool. And we've got another question about, as we mentioned, there is a look and feel similar to other platforms. Can you give us, I guess, a comparison of functionality and that kind of stuff that people may be able to use to compare, I guess, from their perspective, so they have a clear idea? Is that something we can look at, Matt?
Yes. So, there definitely are some, some similarities. I mean, let's not kind of shy away from that. Looking at the question, what differences would I notice right now? Well, if you were using right now, May, you'd notice obviously that the MJOG Desktop GP is, slightly fatter, and we're looking to, kind of put that on a diet in the future and have it so it doesn't take up as much as your screen space. Apart from that, we are coming very close to feature parity, and there are some elements of our functionality in for example, the default MJOG Desktop GP. So if you didn't have Smart on top of it, I know that our competitor product AccuRx, you're able to, for example, initiate a Florey or something like that. Certainly, something we'd like to be able to offer as well. So those kind of are at the moment the most immediate differences that you'll notice between the two products. But you can, in Desktop GP, just like the green toolbar, you can initiate video conversations or consultations rather. You can initiate sequences of messages. You can send a one-to-one message. You can ask for a reply. We're very close. We do have a comparison page on our website that you'll be able to take a look at, and that link will be shared with you either after the recording or in the YouTube description, etc. So
So yeah, if you did want to check out that comparison, that link is right there, and we will put that in the show notes as well. Alternately, if you wanted to have a look at the desktop GP product, that's the separate link. So mjog.com/desktop-gp. We've had a really interesting question coming from Neil, which I actually may be able to answer, but I'll defer to Brendan if he wants to. Is it possible for Accurix and desktop GP to coexist? I think it's possible to run both at the moment, but is there any unforeseen consequences of having them both going at the same time?
I don't believe so, no. I mean, when I speak to a number of sites and I introduce them to Desktop GP, I almost introduce it in case you see your green toolbar there, here, have a blue one. And it very much is. I say the actual functionality of it, and you go through clicking the buttons, is very similar. And they will entirely sit and coexist together. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. And admittedly, I'll confirm that. So I've had both platforms available to me for the past month or so. Been kind of demo trialing, particularly the desktop GP as Nottingham transfers over to using particularly one of these tools. And yeah, they both run at the same time. I've not had any major problems. I guess the only thing I found is that MJOG seems to log me out fairly quickly, so I'm having to log back in if I haven't used it.
We are solving. I think that fix went live earlier this week, if not late last week, for getting kicked out. I think our default was something like every 12 hours, but I think it is now pretty much once you log in, you will not get logged out. So that has been solved. Luckily, it was. I can imagine that was quite annoying.
Yes, I think it definitely was a lot shorter before, but you're right, it did get better. Fortunately, I still occasionally have the odd 12-hour plus day. So yes, glad to hear that's been improved and stuff. So I think we've come to the end of the questions and definitely enjoyed this in terms of being able to see some of the functionality that's currently there and absolutely some of that new functionality that's imminent, as well as what's planned coming forward and stuff. Matt, you mentioned obviously that there's some new other kind of things coming in the next, hopefully, couple of months or so. And if any of our EGP learners want to see that further, demonstration and stuff, let us know. Put it in the comments down below, and absolutely give us a like on this video so that we can know that you've enjoyed this content and we can provide more of it for you. As Brendan mentioned, I know MJOG has started creating a lot more of the video kind of tutorials and stuff on their YouTube platform. And again, I'll put the links to that down below as well. It's probably coming up on the channel somewhere in the corner right now. So you can definitely check out those videos and stuff for more details and things. And more than likely, I'm sure EGP Learning will also be creating some user function guides for patients when it comes to using the MJOG platform as well, mainly because I like to help my patients use these kind of products a lot easier and stuff as well. As always, any comments or questions, let us know. And as always, we're here to help tech enhance your primary care and learning, and we will catch you in the next episode. See you later.